Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is David Freese. I'm the mayor of Tonganoxie. I'm calling to order this August 5th regular meeting of the Tonganoxie City Council. Ms. Huntington, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mayor. Mr. Partridge?
Here.
Ms. McCutcheon?
Here.
Ms. Stevens?
Here.
Mr. Donnelly is absent. Mr. Dale?
Here.
Would you join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First order of business is the approval of minutes, in which we go over the minutes from the previous meeting. Did anyone have any questions or comments or conversation about the minutes? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
I'll motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Dale. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Second item on our agenda is the consent agenda with review of the bill payments from the previous period. Are there any questions regarding the bill payments from the previous period? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Partridge. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 4 on the agenda is old business, in which we allow people to speak for a few minutes. Is there anyone who signed up before the deadline? Mr. Porter?
No signups tonight, Mayor.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to new business. We get to introduce the new police officer, Mr. Brakovich.
Yep, thanks, Mayor. I'll keep my comments short, just introduce Chief Lawson and have him do the honors.
All right.
Thank you, Council. Sorry about that. All right, is that better? Okay, well, thank you, Council. As usual, we really appreciate, the police department appreciates the venue and taking up your time here. We'll try to make it short, but we're very proud to announce that we had a new recruit that we just hired about a month ago, Robert Crabtree. Robert, if you want to start wandering over in this direction. So Robert came to us. He has not been a law enforcement officer before, which sometimes is a little bit of a detriment when we're in a bad shape to hire someone. But what is really good about it is, when we look at the glasses half full, is that Robert is a really intelligent guy. He's done a great job so far in the short time that he's been here. He's been here about a month and doing ride-alongs and learning the procedures. And so I think that probably the best thing about it is that we get to kind of mold somebody from the ground up and really get a lot of grassroots between him being in the community. He lives in Eudora. He lives pretty close. And we get some grassroots, and we get to kind of build them up from the ground up. And so, like every time we do this is Robert's family back here. We got a bunch of them, and so I was teasing Dan, so they're gonna all wanna speak, but they really didn't sign up. But we got his family. We're really lucky to have them here with us. And so I'll say to the family, just like we have a bunch of times, we really appreciate you loaning us, Robert. And it's a big deal when a police officer comes on, takes the oath of office, like we're gonna do here in just a second. But most importantly, his family needs to know that there's gonna be holidays, there's gonna be nighttime differential, and there's gonna be a lot of important things that he's probably gonna miss. So we owe them as much appreciation or more than we do Robert for actually coming here, because they're the ones that are gonna have to haul a lot of water in his absence. So thank you to the family, and his lovely wife's right directly behind me, and so she's gonna have to get most of that carry that cross with helping with the kids and when he's not there. So without further ado here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the oath of office, and this is the oath of office that's required by Kansas CPOST, but most importantly, I think it's most important for him to do that right here in front of all of us as the council and his family and friends, and so we're gonna do that real quick. Okay, Robert, if you raise your right hand. All right, I state your name.
I, Robert Crabtree,
On my honor,
on my
will never betray my badge,
never betray my honor,
my integrity, my character,
my character,
or the public trust.
or the public trust.
I will always have the courage to hold myself and others
I always have the courage to hold myself and others
accountable for our actions.
accountable for our actions.
I will always uphold the Constitution of the United States,
I will always
uphold the Constitution of the United States and the state of Kansas, my community, and the agency I serve. I do solemnly swear, with no mental reservations, to uphold and abide by it in both my official and private life. That's okay, I'm going a little past, my fault. Abide by it in both my official and private life. Okay, all right, well, thank you, Robert. Well, thank you again, council, for giving us the opportunity, and thank you, gang, again.
Thank you. Congratulations.
It's too hot out there. You're going to miss an enthralling meeting, let me tell you. It is actually, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chief, appreciate it. Item B under new business is Resolution 08-2401, award of bid and authorization of contract for 4th Street Bridge Construction Project. Mr. Brockovich?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just give you a quick background on this. It's been quite a few years ago that we asked the city council to prioritize a couple of bridges that needed attention in the community and how they fit in with the other projects that were listed on the city's CMIP. So we were able to start and complete the Church Street Bridge project about a year ago. And we formally started on more in-depth conversations about the 4th Street Bridge in about 2021. Due to a number of reasons, the Church Street Bridge was just a higher priority. And so we're excited to say that the time has come to get that project awarded. We had a bid opening on that last week, and I'll ask Mr. Porter to go over those details. But I just wanted to remind the community that, you know, sometimes the expectation is, well, I heard you guys talk about it, and how come you're not doing it yet? And it just has to fit into the mesh and the matrix of all the other needs that the city has. And we're glad that we're at that point that we can finally address this and put it to rest for the next 40 to 60 years. So with that, Mr. Porter, would you go over the details of the bid results and what we're recommending tonight?
Certainly. So included in the agenda packet is an agenda statement which offers a description of the project process, project schedule, and status, as well as an attachment prepared by Brady Hedstrom with BG Engineering. That attachment includes a bid tabulation that shows base bids, additional costs for early completion, and then a total bid if both parts are incorporated and requested. And so mid-March is the early delivery timeframe, and adding 2 months to that is the base bid delivery timeframe to mid-May. So when the council looks at these options, we have the option to accept the base bid for May delivery and the accelerated bid schedule for 2 month, basically, increase in the speed of the project completion. The bid amounts, each contractor that bid, 4 bids were received for the base bid. 2 bidders chose not to include the early completion, which is a good sign that our efforts to design it this way was effective, because we would have had 2 less bids had we required a completion date earlier as our only option. So we were excited to see that option. We were also very excited that King Construction Company, which is the low bid on the base bid and the low bid when combining the early completion date, was one of those vendors that provided the early option. So the early completion adds exactly $50,000, bringing the total to $1,121,414.50. This is a significant savings from the next lowest bid, which was a little less than $100,000 more in price, and it was also a significant savings from our latest engineer's estimate of probable cost. So we were excited to see that outcome. That'll free up some funds for our other capital project initiatives in the 2025 and future budget years. So very good that despite some of the delays we've had in the execution of this project, we haven't had a negative bid outcome be a result of that. So very, very happy to see these results. We prepared a draft resolution to issue notice of award, and following that, staff would execute the finalized contract and issue a notice to proceed under the draft motion included in the agenda packet. Happy to take any questions you have tonight or any other details we can provide. We'd be glad to follow up with you.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Are there any questions?
You know, obviously, I think the cost of projects like this, we are obligated to take the low bid. Is that, if it meets the qualifications, is that accurate?
We do reserve the right in the bid process to refuse any bids, and based on the knowledge of this company's work and record in this area and in Northeast Kansas and other projects, we don't have any reasons to suggest that, but we do have the right to refuse bids.
You know, it might be interesting in the evaluation, or I guess in the reporting, maybe if there was any way to incorporate where a company's from as well. Just I know King Construction is fairly local to us. It's Kansas, right?
It's Kansas. It's actually in Heston, Kansas.
Okay.
There's King's Construction based in Oskaloosa
Okay,
and
that's
other
the one I'm
local
thinking of.
areas.
Okay.
But actually, they're out of Heston, this group.
So I think it's always wonderful to, you know, support a Kansas company as well.
Yeah.
But of course, they got to come in with a reasonable bid. But I'm just, so it's interesting.
Mr. Dale, though, to your point, in our formal procurement policy or purchasing policy for the city, we do have a provision that when there is a local provider that bids for a project, if they're not the lowest, we have an ability to determine what percentage, within what percentage they are of the low bid, and take that into consideration to give a preference to local companies. So, yeah.
I was going to ask about that because Heston's not too far from where I grew up. That's like a 2.5 hour drive. Have they done much work up here before?
Yeah, so BG's very familiar with them. A lot of outfits like this, they are prepared to mobilize. If you think about, they're probably not, they're only doing so many bridges in Heston or in surrounding communities. So we're certainly considered part of that region. And BG was comfortable with their prior projects and the success.
And then I'm sorry if you answered this while I was reading this thing, but was there a reason why all the bids were so much lower than the estimated cost? What particular variable might have changed that resulted in bids being so much lower than we thought they might be?
No, not, you know, we looked at the per unit pricing. I mean, there was just some fluctuation there, and believe it or not, even though the bridge itself doesn't look like a huge project, when you go to itemize that on a line item by line item basis, just a little bit of fluctuation here or there, we'll get that. I think the concern is always, you know, speed to delivery and how competitive and how many other projects there were. You know, obviously the engineer's opinion of probable cost is based off of actual values they've seen on other bid projects. I think one of the concerns for any project that's being bid right now is the federal government did introduce a lot of funding opportunities for infrastructure projects through a variety of infrastructure bills that either come directly from the feds or pass through on the state. And so I think there was a little bit of concern that there wouldn't be, I'll do the air quotes, hungry bidders or folks that are eager to do a project. So when we saw 4 that came in under the EOPC, we were feeling pretty good that we were in a good grouping of solid price ranges. Where in the past, maybe, and again to Mr. Dale's point, we've gone with a low bid, and if we didn't specify certain requirements, you know, similar experience, similar jobs from those companies, I would be more concerned. But this is it's a good group of 4 that responded, and King has an outstanding reputation. I don't have any concerns with moving forward with them.
Any more questions or conversation? I would accept the motion.
One thing I do want to add that I think is important for the record, so as we were developing the project schedule, we met with, obviously, our public safety departments. We've done further outreach to like the sheriff's office. We also set up meeting times with the school district and their bus transportation folks, because we know this is going to take out one of the major thoroughfares during that. And so as we go to actually award this bid and set a final construction calendar, we're going to circle back with all those groups. Something you should be aware of too is the company, the winning bid will be responsible for all the traffic or road closed ahead type signs. We're going to add something that will also specify that the sidewalk is also closed. Because we've already witnessed folks just wanting to go through construction sites. And so we'll do that. But I did want to point one thing out, that there won't be clearly marked detours. We did do a little bit of analysis on how much traffic is affected in that area, and a lot of it's local traffic. And, unnecessarily rerouting traffic through neighborhoods or didn't seem like a good idea. And so we're going to just stick with the road closed ahead as you come from the east on 206th Street. And then obviously the hard barriers as you get right to the project site. But we'll try to keep as much traffic availability right before you get to the bridges as they can. So again, it'll be a little bit of an inconvenience, but if we can get another 50 years out of this bridge like we did the first one, I think we'll be in good shape.
Thank you, Mr. Brockovich. Any more questions or conversation or debate? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that the city approve Resolution 08-2401, approving and authorizing execution of the construction contract with King Construction Company Incorporated for replacement of the 4th Street Bridge over Tonganoxie Creek.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the announcement for the Gallagher Park Memorial Brick Purchase Opportunity. Mr. Porter?
Thank you, Mayor. This item is just sort of a FYI to the council and to the community, anyone who may be watching or will watch later. As a reminder, if you haven't been familiar with the project, back in 2012, the family of Margaret and Harry Gallagher, who used to live at the property located directly south of the Tonganoxie Water Park location, that is now the Gallagher Park location, donated that property to the city, and it was subsequently developed as a park space. One of the ways that funding was raised for certain improvements to the park was the sale of memorial bricks that are laid in a circle at the water fountain, concrete water fountain area with benches in the middle of that park. We sold, I'd say, a majority of those right when the initiative took off in about 2015 through 2017. Since then, it's sort of slowed down. In the last 3 or 4 years, there really hasn't been any activity. We are down to about 10 opportunities left, and the city, in that fundraising effort, set a price at $100 for the memorial brick. An online order form is available. We linked that in the agenda packet. We've posted it on the city website, and also we'll do some social media outreach to remind people of that. There's a lot of really interesting names and phrases already down in the area if you haven't been to it personally. And again, we're down to only about 10 slots left, so we wanted to make the community aware of that and try our best to finish that out in an expeditious manner if we could. So no action requested of the council tonight, but just wanted to make you aware of that opportunity, and anyone you may know or if you yourselves may want to participate, just let us know at City Hall or use the link to submit the form.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Any questions for Mr. Porter? Okay. Thank you. Next up is the city manager agenda. Mr. Brockovich?
Yeah, Mayor, just a couple of quick items, and I apologize that we didn't have anything listed on the agenda. The first, I'll keep extremely brief. Just a reminder that tomorrow night at 7 o'clock in this building is a public meeting to discuss the first steps of the downtown regulating plan, or what's the future of downtown. And again, that's kind of the 4th Street corridor for us. The consultants that were hired, Multi-Studio, are going to present some of the initial findings. It's, I think, very informative. You know, and it's really at the early stages of just planning and mapping that out. So we're hoping to have some level of input. There will be a separate stakeholder meeting for the businesses that are located there, but there is a meeting open to the public at 7 tomorrow. And then the second item is one that Mr. Porter has been working on this afternoon. We were made aware that the notices to exceed the revenue neutral rate were sent out by the county about a couple of weeks ago, that they were going to mail them. And we saw some that came to the city on some of the property we own, and we were kind of surprised at the format change to those forms. And so if you'll bear with us and give us about 10 minutes, we thought it'd be worthwhile to go through that, because in a time where, you know, I would say a lot of the taxing jurisdictions within the city of Tonganoxie had said, hey, our maximum rate will likely exceed the revenue neutral rate, even though we may just maintain a flat mill, except for one, the county has suggested that they may increase their mill by 2 mills. It's just interesting that the form itself has changed from what it was last year, where there were nominal changes, and I'm certainly not suggesting it was that one entity then could better hide their desire to raise the taxes, but if someone were to infer that, that may not be an incorrect way to interpret it. And so I guess to avoid any confusion, we thought it'd be best to have staff kind of roll through that so that it's clear for you or for anybody listening. At least it may not justify or clarify why the forms were done the way they were, but it may be a little bit clearer in at least how to read those. And so with that, if you'll give us the 10 minutes, Mayor, I'll ask Mr. Porter to kind of roll through that. Sure. Okay, thank you. Dan?
Sorry, I would also add that putting something on the website to explain it, that
Certainly.
when you look at the city line, if you go across, if it shows an increase, that is not because the city had to ask for any additional tax dollars this year. I mean, we did not raise our mill.
That's a good point.
And so if you see an increase, that is because the valuation went up on that particular property.
That's a good point. Thanks, Ms. Stevens. So what you have at the dais tonight are 3 sheets of paper. I think it's 5 printed pages on the front and back sides. I'll start on the front. This is just basically a mock-up of an actual revenue neutral rate notice in the new format. It sort of looks the same. There's 2 boxes shown. What I want to point out on this page is on the top box, the larger box, everything in orange colored font is not existing on the form. So these are all, I would call it, missing pieces of information that are helpful for context. One of those at the top of the page is change in assessed valuation. That's really important because the individual property that the notice represents has a change in valuation that drives sometimes all or sometimes a large part of the amount and the percentage change amounts shown down in the form. Like Ms. Stevens' point, the city may show an increase in tax collections that are attributable 100% to the property valuation increase for a certain property. The other thing I would want to point out initially is looking at the middle of that page, the taxes for last year are on the far left-hand side. The second column from the left with numbers is the taxes if the entity had adopted a revenue neutral rate maximum mill levy, which wasn't the case in any of the entities in the Tonganoxie overlapping tax districts. And then the third column with numbers is the 2024 maximum tax rate, which was the highest possible mill levy that was notified by each entity to the county clerk. What you can then see in the final 2 columns is the amount difference between the maximum tax levy versus the 2023 or the prior year taxes paid and a percentage changed. The important thing to point out about those 2 elements is they don't account for the change in valuation and split that out from the tax levy and the mill levy. So that's an important point because someone may have a astoundingly high percentage and amount, and they may have just bought the property the prior year. The appraised value got reset at a much higher amount, and that's almost entirely responsible for that. The other thing, like George mentioned earlier, is nowhere on this form that everyone just received is a reference to a mill levy. And so a mill levy was set by the city and by every other overlapping tax district, a maximum. And instead, what's been shown are projected estimates of last year's taxes paid versus what the revenue neutral rate could have been and what the maximum mill levy rate would be. It's a little bit disingenuous because the city and the other entities have not, expressly adopted a final mill levy yet. And again, without those totals and without the levies, you lose a lot of the context of reading this form and understanding it. What I've shown in the bottom of this page, on page 1, just for your reference, is a summarization of the 2023 mill levies, the 2024 revenue neutral rate, what they would have had to have been to not levy any dollars more in taxes from the whole district, and then the 2024 maximum levies that the county was notified of.
If I may interject you there, just, excuse me, just to point out as well to everyone reading it that the 2024 revenue neutral rate mill levy, the total calculation is incorrect.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, that's correct. That's a typo. I apologize for that. But I do believe the maximum looks like it's correct.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jake. So another problematic thing, and I think in transparency that we'll try to address from the city's perspective, is how do you go and find what the current mill levy are and what the current maximum mill levies are that every entity has published. They may have published them in the newspaper a day you didn't get the paper. You may not get the paper. You may not get the paper that has the legal classified notice for every taxing entity that overlaps in your property. So what I've shown on the next 2 pages, if you turn that first page over and then look at the third or the second page, that's a summarization provided by Leavenworth County on their website that shows every county taxing district's revenue neutral rate, their mill levy proposed maximum, and the hearing, date, time, and location, which is essentially what the revenue neutral rate collected from every entity. And so the county summarized that. What's missing and what's concerning that it's not shown is the current mill levy. So no one can look at this and say the city kept theirs almost flat or flat. The county raised theirs by 2 mills evenly. And that's a failure in transparency, I think, that is a little bit hard to understand. And maybe it was just an oversight, but it would be helpful to people to know, is the proposed mill levy higher than the current mill levy from the prior year? And that's frankly missing. So if you want to find that, and we'll provide links to this when we share some information online, turning that page over is a second document available on the state municipal services website, and I believe on the county's website as well. And that shows mill levies in very, very small font for every taxing district in the city and overlapping districts added together and a lot of other good information. But I think the point of this is the notices people receive will give them some information, but it won't give them all of it, and it won't give context about what the mill levy projected change, maximum change is by every entity, which again, you can see on the bottom of that first page for our overlapping jurisdictions. But are there any questions or other points that the council wants highlighted?
I agree with your point. This is hiding that. This is hiding information. It's hiding that the county has raised the mill by 2. And, I see people post online about either the governor raising property taxes or the city raising property taxes. And we cut a lot last year in terms of our mill, and we're keeping flat this year. And so it's really disappointing to see that this information is not going to be clear to people who get this, who didn't either read Sean's article or whatever. So I think it'll be crucial making Jake's adjustment to get something like this with the proposed adjustments on our website. not a bunch of clicks away, just like information you can use somewhere on the front page of our website.
Yeah.
And send it out on Facebook, also on the city Facebook. Because there'll be a lot of questions and they're gonna hit you and your team at City Hall here. Or Dave when he goes to the grocery store, or any of us, but this is helpful, showing exactly what is missing from this document.
I think to be fair, Mrs. Stevens also received one from Jackson County,
Yeah,
Jackson County, Kansas, which is in the same format. It seems plausible to me that, that the state itself sort of prescribed the format, to get them consistent through all the counties. It's certainly, that doesn't excuse the shortcomings of the format, but, it also seems to me that it kind of, it doesn't, while in this particular case, it doesn't tell the story of Tonganoxie, Leavenworth County taxpayers, and who is raising mill levies and raising the property tax rates and who is not. Rather, it just throws out that everybody's raising rates. Everybody's getting more of your tax money, which I think is, in my opinion, is part of the agenda that, that some people want to, at the state level, want to make. So,
yeah,
It's either lazy or deceptive, and neither is a good look.
yeah, exactly, yeah. Figuring out that it's a new statewide format, apparently just from the
just
two
from
examples we
there's
have.
a whole lot more counties.
But then the additional information of this chart not showing what the current one is versus the proposed, that's an omission right there.
And part of the equation is always too, for revenue neutral rate, that number makes sense if you're only looking at revaluation, but the equation includes new growth. So for growing communities like Southern Leavenworth County and City of Tonganoxie, we're always going to look in a non-favorable light when you look at property tax dollars today versus last year versus the year before. And a large part of that is growth. And it's not only revaluation of properties. So that's hard to explain in a single handout sent to every taxpayer.
Ultimately, my takeaway is when I lay my head on the pillow at night, I know that I feel like we've done right.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Well, and just one other comment, and again, to reemphasize, there's a lot of line items, and the school district, basically, they split every mill that the school district collects. So it's not just a conglomerate number, right? It's, here's what you do for capital outlay, your bond and debt payments, and general fund, and then the rec commission got its own line. But for the city, they never bifurcate that we're just simply a pass-through for the libraries, nearly 8 mills. And so when you look at it, it looks like the city collects a higher mill than the county, which we do until you take out what is simply just a pass-through to the library, in which case the county is the second largest taxing entity. And that's not just true for the city of Tonganoxie, it's true for all 4 large cities in the county. And again, if it's part of a larger formatting issue that the state mandates, so be it. But I think it's something that's important to clarify for our constituents that, I know it reads a certain way, and you can still be mad. You can be mad that your house is appraised too high, which in turn means you're paying too much in property tax. But it really mitigates the large cuts that the city made last year. And as a reminder to everybody, the city cut 4 mills, and by comparison, I'll just pick on the county. The county cut 0.01 or 6, somewhere. It was less than 1 mil. And so then in a year where every other entity is kind of, again, staying flat, you're not drawn to that same level of attention. And so we'll do our best to clarify it And again, it is what it is. I think it's Mr. Porter said the best way. The situation is your value probably went up, and staying at a flat mill rate means you're gonna pay more. And you have every right to be upset about that, but I think the city shows justification. And we can certainly add more discussion. And, last year we cut 4 mills, and the county certainly does a great job of the narrative. They express that they get hit with unfunded mandates by the state all the time. I think we would be happy to share our story if we cut 4 mills and the county did away with mutual aid agreements or mutual agreements that we had in shared cost road maintenance costs of any roads that are on the outside that touch both the county and the city. And so we'll certainly do our part. Again, not to deflect or take away. The city needs X amount of dollars to continue to offer the services we do. But I think, again, in the way it's expressed in this format it's not truly transparent, and so we'll do our best to mitigate that. Thank you for the chance to discuss it. I'm sorry if we went over our 10 minutes.
I'm curious, in regard to your comments, George, about how the school district's different mill levies are all laid bare in separate line items. Does the county just have one mill levy, just one general deal? 5.
Yeah.
At least 5, yeah.
So
Roads and bridges.
So
and
5
general
that
fund.
should, if treated similarly, be laid out line item by line item.
Could be, yeah.
They could. And the city does too, obviously. We've got multiple, but I was just merely suggesting the one entity that we are nothing more than a pass-through.
Sure.
The library should be listed. If the rec commission is listed, they're 5 mills of the total that the school district collects, so I'm not sure I understand why they get their own line item, but the library doesn't for us.
Yep.
So, I can speculate, but.
Thanks, gentlemen. Anything further, Mr. Brankovich? No. Item 7, the city attorney agenda. Do you have anything first?
No items, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem agenda, Ms. Stevens?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
All right, item 9, the city council agenda. Anyone have anything? Item 10 is the mayor agenda. I would remind everybody that the primaries are tomorrow, and you should get out and vote. And the fair this past week, even though it was hot, it was fun to be out there and see everybody again. So that's all I have. And do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, while I have you all here, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Dale. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Partridge. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.